Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Fashion Experiment. It's Dr. Bridget, your professor of all things fashion. And today I'm back with another video on fashion sustainability. So in my last video, I provided a really good foundation that provided really the historical situation and environment that brought us to where we are today and why sustainability has to even be a trend, the whole purpose of that. And I knew it was, a lot of information, but it's good information. It's the truth of, how the fashion industry and our practices and even our culture and our society have contributed to the health of um, our earth, and how practices that we have evolved to, hold as just normal traditions of consuming goods, how it's really affected the world. And today's video is not going to be so heavy. I'm going to focus on looking at the sustainable practices that many consumers are now adopting and how that correlates to fashion trends. So today's video should be more interesting and it's lighter. All right. But if you haven't looked at the first video, you should check it out. Okay. All right. So I'm starting with the resourceful consumer. So I provided a consumer insights video highlighting the 3 consumer categories that have evolved for this year. And they're all based on different outlooks on life. The consumer who is optimistic, the joyful expression consumer, the consumer who wants to get connected, back to their world, back to their family, their friends, and just engage and interact with people. And then there's the resourceful consumer. So this consumer category is all about making better with less and really focusing on embracing more sustainable practices because they recognize the importance of taking care of the earth, taking care of other people, one another. And I connected this consumer group, this particular category, with individuals who were frontline workers or individuals who, were very involved and connected to working with individuals who were affected by the pandemic. So they are, innate within themselves individuals who are connected to helping. So it makes sense for them to want to help the earth and engage in practices that help sustain the world. Okay, so that's what all of the sustainable trends are based on, this type of consumer. But I believe that regardless of what category you fall into, that we all can examine the sustainable practices and try to incorporate them into our lives, begin to practice more sustainable practices. So these are some action points that evolved from the trends. And understand, sustainability is not something that's just for the moment. It's not a fad. It will remain. It has been around for over a decade, consistently been part of the trend forecast for the fashion industry. It's not going anywhere. If anything, you're going to see these practices more and more and more and more widely spread, widely used, widely exposed as trends and incorporated into the fashion designs is what will happen. All right, so this slide just highlights some action points. So number 1, and this is in hierarchy, like based on importance as far as the ranking from the industry professionals and feedback from consumers that are surveyed. So comfort is key. And that makes sense. We've all been craving comfort. We've all gotten used to being comfortable because of all the changes that have happened in our world. We want comfort in our clothing, in our garments. So again, a theme that exists that is not going away. How can we merge sustainable practices with a comfortable style? All right, and then there's designing with natural materials and natural tones. So you're going to see that in the examples, really thinking about nature and how we can incorporate that from materials, from color palettes, into our designs to make them more sustainable. Number 3 is upcycle styles for longevity. So upcycling is not throwing away those items once you don't want it anymore. If it might be something wrong with it, might not be something wrong with it. Adopting a new perspective. So upcycling is giving new life to something that we deemed as old and unusable. So I have the t-shirt with the hole in it. How can I upcycle it? How about I go to the store and buy some patches and put a cute little patch over that hole in the shirt so I can give it longer life and make it fresh and interesting again. That's just one example. Also ranked in at number 3, exploring and articulating circular production strategy. And that just goes along with upcycling. And there's been lots of research done in the area of circular production, meaning eliminating the waste. How can we eliminate waste in the production of a product? And when we attempt to repurpose it or upcycle it, how can that even become part of the production process to say, hey, we don't even need to send these materials to the landfill because we produced a system where unusable garment waste can be repurposed in this way. Like that, there's lots of research in my master's program. I did research on it, and that was like a decade ago, right? So more research needs to be done. It just, along with doing research, we need to make it part of everyday conversation and create practices that everyone can adopt. Is really, really what I see as where we're going to make a turn and really see sustainability used widespread and become a normal everyday practice. Okay. And then number 4, encourage consumers to pause. And that's important to just, and that almost needs to be number 1 in the process of thinking about my consumer decision-making practices and how I make decisions about what I purchase and how I get rid of what I deem as unusable or waste. You know, once I don't want it anymore, you really have to stop and pause and think about, how do I make my decisions and how can I make different decisions that can support sustainability? Pausing for a minute to reflect. All right, so now we're going to talk about the sustainable trends that we're seeing in garments for 2022. These couple slides are just bringing back to your memory, or if you did not watch the first video, helping you understand that we did not just appear here. You know, sustainability just didn't come from anywhere. It came from our practices, our society, our culture. And at one point in history, you know, consumers made clothes, everything was handmade, and it was made to last and to be worn multiple times and repaired. And then once you couldn't fit it anymore, you would hand it down and it would be worn and worn and worn again. So we want to teach people about this and, you know, bring to your memory, if you did study it in a history class, that we used to be a repair economy. So it's not a new idea. It's nothing that it was just created. We always existed in a manner in which we maintained our clothing, maintained garments, and fixed things and kept using them. In recent years, and I'm saying like decade, we've become a culture of consuming and just more. And that is how we got to the place that we are now, with all this excess waste and nowhere for it to go. And pollution in the waters, pollution in the air from the chemicals that are emitted. And those are all the things that I talked about in the first video that I won't repeat, but just letting you know, we can become a repair society again. And that is what is trending this year for 22 and what will persist in the years to come. You will see more about sustainability, more businesses promoting it in the mainstream, okay? So this is one example, a Make, Do, and Mend 2.0, a company who has an app that gives you ideas about how to mend your goods, which is really cool, okay? So more Make, Do, and Mend trends. It's all about sustaining the life of your products is what it is, okay? So, oops. So this slide just speaks to two companies that are sustainable brands that focuses on mending products. Emergency Room is one brand, and Beirut, and then Toast in the UK. And like I said, sustainable brands exist. Like the one that always pops into my mind is Patagonia. I mean, whose mission was to be a sustainable business and to show the industry that you can use sustainable practices and found your business on sustainable practice and be successful. And there are others, but you definitely have to research them, but they exist. Thrifty Floral. So as I go through the different sustainable trends, you'll see that many of the techniques and design concepts related to sustainability, they merge together. So here on this slide, you see that the Stoll brand is using this stitching technique to mend a hole, and then including thrifty florals with it. And it's just, it's a different aesthetic. It's not for everyone, but it's a technique that you can use to upcycle a garment and extend the life of a garment, which is being more sustainable. And Home Cycle is another trend. It's all about creating looks that are circular. So looks that you can maintain and mend and continue to rotate and cycle in and out of your wardrobe. So instead of like getting rid of the shirt, this image on top, you see some embroidery detail that's added to it, to the collar, again, to give it new life. So it's like, oh, I don't like this shirt anymore. What can I do to it? I presented the example of adding patches to it. Here we see some embroidery detail to it, or adding some stitching technique to it to give it new life, to bring it back to life so that you would be interested in wearing it again. And there are companies that offer this if you don't have to know how to sew to do it. Carefree Comfort is another trend, and this trend really relates to being simplistic. And this is an idea that is a sustainable trend in regards to seeking out classic designs and designs with simple shapes, so it's easy to transition the garment from one season to the next. It's easy to mix and match it with another coordinating piece and maintain the same closet, maintain the same wardrobe for a longer period of time is what it's about. And it's really a different way of thinking. And that's why I talked about in the action points that you really had to pause and think about, well, hey, what am I doing? How am I shopping? Am I even trying to recycle the stuff that I have now? Do I take it to the Goodwill or Salvation Army? What do I do with it? Maybe I need to just stop throwing it in the trash and try to take it somewhere. Like that could be your first step. You might not be at the point where you want to, dibble and dabble in sewing and adding patches and stitches and embroidery to your clothing. It's a process. So here we are at natural pigments. This slide is here just to indicate that we don't always have to use chemicals to dye garments. You can use natural things that occur in the earth to dye garments. And the number one thing that I know that's used are berries. Blueberries is one example, but just berries in general can be used to dye. Cranberry. We did an experiment in textiles class with students so that they could see how easy it is to use natural dyes to dye fabrics. And it has to be natural fabrics though. So like it has to be cotton is what we used. It does not hold as well. Natural dyes don't hold as well with man-made fibers, but it's a great experience. for students in fashion, students in design to see and learn different sustainable practices that they could try to adopt and incorporate into their design aesthetic. And patched indigo. So I like patches. I like the idea of mixing and matching different pieces of fabric or mixing and matching prints and patterns. So that's really cool. So instead of trying to mend that t-shirt by covering it with a patch or adding embroidery stitch or stitches in general, you can get a scrap piece of denim fabric to stitch on it. You know, that's the idea. Again, it's all about exposing yourself to different sustainable practices and try to incorporate them into your style. And knowing that these techniques, these design ideas are not going to go anywhere. You're going to see them. Designers will continue to use them, incorporate them more and more, and you'll see it more and more. And home cycle, again, is the same idea. So instead of in the previous slide with the indigo patches, home cycle is almost like creating your own pattern with different fabric swatches. So here he made the different pyramids, I'm calling them pyramids, they're triangles, shapes on a t-shirt. And that's the other thing that you'll see, that designers are using these sustainable techniques, but not in a sustainable way. So for instance, let me go back to the patched indigo slide. So you see the t-shirt at the bottom. Wow, that is the design aesthetic. A shirt that appears to be made from scraps of different fabrics. That's what it is, right? That's cool, that's neat, I like it. But it's not been made or manufactured in a sustainable way, meaning the different pattern swatches didn't come from unused garments that were thrown out. So the idea is like, I like the, and I'm saying the idea as far as a manufacturer or a designer, they will see these different sustainable techniques and incorporate them into their designs, but not always in a sustainable way, meaning they're not using really real waste. They're using what they went to the store and bought to recreate that. So that is what you'll see a lot of. And that's what this t-shirt looks like, and the bra top that the model wearing the Nicole McLaughlin design is wearing too. It's not that they use scrap fabrics, they're just using sustainable techniques because it is, you know, interesting. All right, so the next sustainable technique is called heritage quilting. Quilting is cool. I've seen a lot of quilting techniques used for fall winter 22-23 for menswear and women's wear. I saw sweatshirts, I saw short sleeve sweatshirts, and a lot of outerwear that had quilting incorporated into it. So again, it's another technique that you can use to give something that's old, something that needs to be, you know, revived, to give it new life, the quilting technique. Okay, so this brings me to the end of my lesson. I hope you enjoyed it. Please make sure you visit my channel and check out other videos. And I will see you the next time, everyone. Bye.